Do you feel like you have too many interests? Do you feel like your times in which you can make a choice about what you want to work on or what you want to do is so clogged by how many things you want to work on or what you want to do that you don't do anything? Um, or just feel overwhelmed by how many things do you want to do? Or feel like it's impossible to do all the things you want to do? Well, I'm here to say that I completely agree with you. And I feel the exact same. Um, and I don't know what to do about it. I'm quite literally spiraling over it, to a degree. Not literally. I mean, I say quite literally spiraling, and then I say to a degree, not literally. If you're new here, my name's Mickey. This is my one take soul series, and where I film a one take from the soul about things that are going on in my life that may or may not be interesting. And yeah, so today I wanted to talk about fractured interests because boy, oh boy, are my interests fractured. Um, yeah, it's been a minute since I filmed one of these, actually almost 3 months. I think last year I had filmed like 20 of these or something, and it was like a good number. I was like, okay, that's pretty awesome actually that I filmed like 20 of these. This year, this will be my ninth. This will be my ninth video this year, and probably will be the last one that I film this year. So, super fun there. Yeah. uh, yeah. I I don't even know where to begin. I wrote all these fucking notes down, like all these notes down on sort of different areas that I wanted to cover. A lot of this, if you have watched a few of my previous videos, will probably feel a little bit redundant. Because, yeah, I mean, my goal here is to sort of summarize where I'm at and kind of propose to you the inherent issue that resides within my bucket of interests, because there's so many, and what do I do about that? Because I don't know what to do about that. But I can't stop wanting to be interested in all of them. So here we are, we're talking about it. I made myself a little drink because I was like, fuck, I need a drink for this topic here. It's almost been 8 months since I stopped getting drunk on the weekends, which is the first time in my life that I've gone that long since I started drinking, which was about 10 years ago, 8 years ago. I don't know. Something around there. Yeah, just full on have stopped, and I have like a cocktail or two on the weekends, and that's it. And it's been glorious. It's been glorious to not feel so dependent upon a substance. So much so that I feel like it's actually expediting my recovery from burnout that I've sort of been slowly coming back from over the past like 3 years. And so now I'm facing the problem at hand, which is, what the fuck do I do? There's so many things I want to do. There's so much shit I should be doing. And yeah. So maybe let's start with the most practical level. My job. I have a 9 to 5 job that I'm pretty happy with. It pays well enough that I'm comfortable. And there's a certain level of freedom to what I do that I can kind of explore and create things in different ways to my own liking, I guess. And I'm very passionate about the idea of creating products and services and customer experiences for that job. And that's a big thing in itself. Like, I feel like my current problem is that I want to play like both sides so much, to where, like if I like dedicated more of myself towards this, my 9 to 5 job, I could probably pull off some pretty cool stuff. And that might be pretty satisfactory, because at the end of the day, isn't that what this all kind of comes back to? Is that, how sort of fulfilled am I? Do I feel like I'm fulfilled enough? And that's a difficult question to answer, because I feel like loosely I could continue down this path for the rest of my life and I would be pretty fulfilled. I'm not too much of a person who, at least nowadays, I don't really feel like something has to happen, otherwise my life will be pointless, sort of thing. Like I'm pretty content with whatever I kind of get, and I'm grateful for that, because if I wasn't, then I'd be feeling all sorts of other feelings. But I can't help but feel the yearning for deeper expression, for deeper satisfaction and fulfillment, and the kind of thing that comes from making art and things like that. And so at the same time as I enjoy my 9 to 5 job, it's also at odds with sort of the more existential fulfillment that I potentially could gain from, making more art, trying to turn my art into something more real, and herein lies the sort of conundrums that arise when you start diving too far into this. So yeah, main job, pretty satisfied with. There's a lot of things that I would like to do more of. Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm still spending 40 hours a week there at least, so I think there's still a good amount of time that I have, that I can use to a satisfying end. Everything beyond that is kind of questionable. But yeah, so I've been making art since I was a kid. I started writing when I was like, I don't know, 6 or so. We got a computer. I don't even know if we really had like consistent internet, but we got a computer, like a hand-me-down kind of computer, and I just started like typing, and I just started writing stories, and almost entirely fiction stories that I was just writing, but it also made me like a really fast typer, so that's useful. But like that, I think realizing the emotional power, even just for myself, like the emotional power of writing something, has sort of fueled everything from that point. I've gone down many paths. I've made a lot of art since I was that age, whether that be writing or illustration or photography or videography or graphic design. Yeah, and it's tricky to balance all of those things. It's hard though, because to feel, I don't know what the word is, to feel secure in making art or trying to make art full time is scary, and it's tricky obviously for obvious reasons, but it's scary because it sort of starts pulling away at the kind of magic of serendipity of making art, and if you're making it for your career to make a livelihood off of, does that sort of steal, how much does it steal from the process of making the art and the satisfaction you have from making it for your own self, as opposed to the external forces that come along and sort of validate or invalidate, and those kind of things. So past few years, really past decade, I've been very interested in freelancing. Nowadays, I've been doing graphic design at my main job for 6-ish years now. So I'm very interested in like full-time freelancing graphic design, and that obviously in itself has a whole slew of problems. Really, all I'm working towards, all I'm interested in, is just getting closer and closer to freedom, right? How close can I get to it in this system that we live within? Obviously, the 9 to 5 job is not the worst thing in the world, but it's also the most sort of demanding, whereas freelancing can theoretically transcend that a little bit. Yes, you get the freedom of like location and choice and things like that, but you're also, your own boss, your own business owner, doing all the sort of admin that goes with it. So there's a lot of trade-offs everywhere. I'm personally still very interested in freelancing. I have made the most money that I've ever made from freelancing this year. Just barely topped last year's, just slightly, not much, but just slightly. So that's been really nice. it's progressed really well for me. I've gotten a couple really new clients that I'm really happy with, and so I'm optimistic on expanding that side of what I'm doing to hopefully be more beneficial for myself. But nonetheless, it's still, you're still answering to someone, I guess, to your clients, and sort of selling yourself and proving your worth kind of constantly. And it's not so indifferent from, or not so dissimilar from working at a 9-to-5 job in that way. And I suppose that could be lent towards even making art online as a creator, right? Because you're still serving an audience. You don't want to just stray away from that audience too much and make them question their likability, their likeness towards you, and that kind of stuff. You get where I'm going with this? This is so extra. So, of course, I would love to go full-time freelancing, but to do so would require me to basically, in a more traditional sense, replace my full-time job's income with freelance income entirely. And to do that, to get to that point, outside of some pretty nifty whirligig stuff, like, I'm going to charge a super amount of money and make it seem worthwhile, that kind of thing. Outside of that, it would require me to work basically 2 jobs. And I'm not super interested in that, especially coming from the place that I've come from, emotionally and mentally, of being burnt out, of doing a lot of shitty work on the side of my main job. I'm not interested in that. I would like to find a different way to that point. And I know it would take longer. I'm aware that it's more improbable without sort of taking that kind of burden on of both things simultaneously for however long that takes. Which is to an extent what I'm doing right now, but it's a pretty small burden on top of my main job. So that's been working out okay. So that's another problem with freelancing, with wanting to go full time, is that sort of crossover. Probably the biggest difficulty that many people face is sort of the exiting of the black hole that is the 9-to-5 sort of workforce, right? Yeah. And so, I have this goal, this idea of saving up an exorbitant amount of money from my main job and from the slow progress that I make on the freelance side, and save up all that, like a year's worth of salary or whatever, and then just quit my job and then just go full-time freelance, or just take that year to try to become full-time freelance. That's the working mission statement at the moment for that goal, which is a hefty thing in itself. I mean, even at this rate, that like the rough calculations that I've found would be like 8 years to save for that. So is it realistic? I don't know. I'm obviously blabbering a lot about myself. This is just what I'm gonna do this whole video, but maybe this might give you some feelings of not being so alone in sort of attaining your dreams and going after those things that you want, because the reality of going after them sometimes can be extremely daunting and extremely difficult. And so all I'm doing at this moment is kind of just expressing the difficulty in doing so in a genuine, honest way, like that's genuine to yourself. Like finding that path for yourself can be very difficult. Yeah, it's tricky. It's real tricky. So yes, that's the current tentative goal, is saving up that much money, and then quitting. So I've got plenty of time to burn between now and then, Right? Right. Am I going to not make art the whole time? That seems unlikely, especially now that I'm feeling more emboldened, more empowered to make more art. Unlike the past couple of years, I've been pretty low on the output poll. So, still trying to balance and rectify that out. But that then leads me to the question and the wondering of, do I pursue my art, pursue the creation of art, and the potential of gaining a following online that could then be monetarily viable during that time as well, to sort of either work in tandem to the freelancing or just, of its own thing. And that in lies the question is like, if I'm going to put this much effort in to save this much money, to do all this, to work freelancing full time, am I not asking myself the valuable enough question in that, is this what I want to be doing? If I had to choose, if money weren't the thing that we are asking ourselves about all the time, if that wasn't the aspect that we're hinging everything on, what would we be doing? That's the question. And when I ask myself that question, that is where the real difficulties arise. Because there are many things that I would much rather be doing. Are they valuable? I don't know. Are they worthwhile? Maybe. I don't, it's so hard to say from the internal side. It's a very internal feeling, a very internal process. Yeah, it's... Sorry, I had to pee. Thankfully, the OBS studio has this delightful pause feature, so I could pause it and go do that and come back. Anyway. So, in this theoretical idea, which is already cliche enough of like being a financially viable content creator, right? Where that be either from YouTube AdSense or sponsorship deals or Patreon or whatever it might be. The question then becomes, okay, what kind of art do I want to make? What do I want to try to gain a name for? Now, before I go down that path, I do want to add the disclaimer that I'm pretty pro creator and pro the idea of pursuing your art and your ideas to a monetarily viable space, because I don't believe that it takes that much. I forget the name of the podcast that I listened to a lot a couple years ago. But basically his thesis was, it takes 1,000 true fans or whatever to give you $100 a year or whatever it might be, to sort of make a living off of. And when you put it in that perspective of like, how much do you really need to like live off of? Not a ton. I mean, obviously it grows over time, but the point being is that the amount is less than you might think or might imagine when you think about trying to make a career out of making art. And that's something I've always kept in mind, is like, it's technically possible, even though it seems daunting and seems very unlikely, which it isn't necessarily not unlikely. Freelancing feels a little bit more realistic, hence why I kind of veer that way, even though it doesn't feel necessarily true to me. Would much rather just fucking fly with the wind, but that is a really high luxury, a very, very high luxury, and I don't know if I'll ever have that. So that's just a reality we all have to accept, I guess, right? Like, I don't know. So, what kind of art? Well, that is where a lot of my problems continue to ramp, because my biggest problem, historically, has always been niching down. I've probably made 30 or 40 YouTube channels since I was 10. Why so many YouTube channels? 90% of them, 95% of them have been niche specific YouTube channels that I make like a video for, because I become hyper fixed on that idea for about a week, and then I give up on it. Simple as that, right? So there's that sort of historical precedent there that I have in my mind of like, okay, well, obviously, that might be tricky. Since then, I've made 2 brands that I've stuck with for years now. One being Uproot, which is my sort of main handle on everything. It's my main brand. It encapsulates my ideology and everything perfectly. And then there's this channel, Mickey versus Everything, which I've had for, gosh, a while now. Most of the old videos have been hidden. I did vlogging for almost 100 days on this channel and a lot of different things on this channel. Mostly just fucking around. But yeah, I have been using the channel for a long time now. And this is the sort of main thing that I do now as far as YouTube goes. This is the only thing I do because I wanted to lower the barrier to entry for making YouTube videos as far as I could, and this was my answer. So yeah, I have a tricky time niching down, and that is the sort of the thing, right? The advice that everyone gives is like, find your niche and blah blah blah. And when I approach it from that business perspective, it makes perfect sense, and it makes perfect sense to go after that. And when it comes to perhaps freelancing, sharing graphic design work, sharing graphic design advice, sharing ideas for business owners for brand messaging, and sharing making a good brand experience, things like that, I could make a whole fucking thing about that. But truth be told, I wouldn't be fulfilled by just doing that. I would always be being pulled towards something else as well. I'm never going to stay there. I'm always going to kind of meander between things. And so that is where my problem arises, is how do I successfully meander between things? For example, I wrote down, for making art specifically, I wrote down writing, illustration, motion graphics, animation, cinematography, philosophy, storytelling, and graphic design. Those are all things that I am deeply passionate about. Writing being the sort of, I would say, the workhorse that I could foresee being the part of my work, because I think writing can connect itself many different ways. It could be editorial, it could be a review, it could be philosophical, it could be political, it could be, really anything. And I love writing. I do. So I think writing is definitely like my number one, right? And then illustration would probably be number 2, because there's something so satisfying about illustrating something and it coming out really nicely, motion graphics and animation, I think motion graphics, animation, and cinematography, and storytelling kind of fall into the same bucket, and it's always been something I've been very passionate about. Not one that I've necessarily explored enough, as much as I say that I'm passionate about it. I don't do it really enough, but what else is new, So yeah, it's hard because on top of all that art making stuff, I'm also very passionate about business. I'm passionate about making useful products that people like and helping people, and sort of the exchanging of value, right? I'm very interested in that. I'm very passionate about that as well. And so, the question then is like, how the hell do I segment this so that it is a cohesive brand? Or how the hell do I make it one channel or one, name that all of this falls under? It feels like it would be impossible. It feels like I couldn't possibly do that much under one place, It'd be too confusing for the average YouTube viewer, the average Instagram follower. I mean, it'd be too much for me, so I can't imagine it'd be not for somebody else. Like, if you find a YouTube video that you like about, philosophy in some way, and you go on to it, and there's like 6 tutorials about different art making things or something, like, that's going to be so sort of jarring as far as like, okay, well, I don't see anything in this like immediate recent history that's like super interesting to me, so like, should I even subscribe? I don't know. It's the proposition becomes a lot trickier to grab someone's attention and maintain it. So that leads me to believe that I should make separate sources for all of these different paths, which is ridiculous too. Because, one, the idea of a consistent posting schedule would be just thrown out the door, because even me posting anything consistently is going to be next to impossible. But then having like 7 different places that I could be posting something on, it's going to be super random the next time I post a video, and I've spent some time, exploring like how I can possibly incorporate all of these different sort of passions and interests into one thing. And so I wrote down this thing the other day, called the Uproot Content Spread, which I would call maybe more like a content tree, perhaps. So the process would be to write something, and then make an illustration inspired by that writing, and then make a spoken word / montage video for my main channel, and then make a freewheeling discussion video about the writing, the illustration, and what led me to make them, posted on this channel, and then a loosely instructional video about my process and any tricks and tips I have about making the art, posted on an educational channel, and then a zine of the writing nicely laid out in InDesign. It's an insane thing. The people I talk, it's laughable. It's very laughable. It's laughable. So I don't know what to do about it. I'm really lost, honestly, on how to move forward from this point, because I don't know what the fuck to do. I have a heavy focus on quality. My desire to deliver quality and practice that quality is really what I'm mostly interested in right now. Whatever it might be, whatever sort of subject I choose, I want to make like really good videos, to the capacity that I have the capability of doing, because obviously I'm not don't have the best physical resources, but I do have creativity and I do have determination. So I believe in myself and the ability to actually make some pretty good videos. I just have to do that first, So, ultimately my North Star, as far as making art goes, is, I wrote this down, which I feel like is important to mention, is like, why? Why do I want to make art? What is the reason that I feel like it's worthwhile spending all this effort and time and energy thinking about how I do it and whatever I do. And my North Star is reminding people of the magic of the natural world around us, and how awe-inspiring and captivating it is when you think about the fact that like, we are carbon and minerals and amino acids and things that all just kind of came from stars exploding and congealing into this rock in the solar system, being pelted by all these asteroids carrying water, and then eventually that water just like turned into steam and made an atmosphere and clouds and rain and erosion, and it's insane when you think about it. And I mean, obviously that's a very scientific lens, and so I think there's a blend there of like mystical plus science, the mystical appreciation of it, but the scientific reality, right? It's kind of where most of my interests lie. And I think we easily forget about it. We easily forget that it's there, that reality is sitting in front of us, and we can easily get wrapped up in the humdrum mundane of our interior worlds, or the societal interior that feels like the outer limits. But rather, society is a very small kind of inset of the outer limit that is the magic of the world around us, and space and everything. It's just, I've been very awe-inspired by it for quite some time, and that's where most of my art is inspired from. So, anyway, all this to say, I don't know what I'm going to do. I think at best what I will wind up doing is just trying to do something, whether that be writing more, which I have been doing a little bit more writing lately, whether that be filming some videos of that writing, or illustrating more, or trying my hand more motion graphics, and maybe learning some Blender some more. Just figuring it out as I go, I guess. I don't know what to do. I'm at such a loss. And I've been doing this for so long at this point, beating my head against the same walls. And I mean, obviously I'm overcomplicating it too. It's because, like, what I should be focusing on is just the doing, right? And not so much just the thinking of how to structure it. But it feels like that's a important first step too, is the structure, the planning, that stuff. So I'll be sure to keep you posted. I hope you enjoyed this very long rant and maybe got some catharsis out of it, in that if you feel the same, you are certainly not alone. There are plenty of us out there who are trapped in our sort of inability to devote enough time to our deepest interests, but also having too many of them too. It's a difficult problem in the modern age, where we're giving a large portion of ourselves to our day jobs, and then, taking care of life around it and stuff. There's so much to do all the time, and it is extremely overstimulating. And however we can kind of get back to the center the fastest is obviously the best. But we must also be gentle with ourselves, that we can't expect us to do it all. We can't expect ourselves to do everything. And we must give ourselves some time to find our way back to our centers, our natural centers, right? A lot of wishy-washy words, but hopefully that means something to you. Until next time, I'll see ya. Have a beautiful evening, and if I don't talk to you before 2025, then beautiful 2025 start to 2025. Anyway, yeah. Okay, see you soon. Bye.